Do you remember when you were a kid where you would just run home from school, you'd get off the bus and you'd immediately start playing out the crayons and you'd color, you'd run outside and make up all these stories in your head. Maybe you'd ride bikes with the other kids in your neighborhood. But now, as an adult, when you get home from work, you collapse on the couch, you scroll on your phone, you've got TV going on in the background. Maybe you feel like you have no energy, you feel anxious, maybe even a little depressed. Taking care of your mental health can feel like an entire to-do list on top of your full-time job. It just feels like more work. But you can take care of your mental health and have fun doing it. And it starts with remembering all of those activities that you used to love doing as a kid. It starts with having hobbies. A hobby is anything that makes you feel happy, anything that makes you feel satisfied in your free time. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. It's something that's not tied to your work, not tied to your productivity. It's something that you do just for fun, something that you would do if no one else knew you were doing it. Something that you're interested in, something that brings you fulfillment, and I bet it's something you're not doing enough right now. So today we're gonna get into why hobbies matter for your mental health, how to choose the right hobby for you in this current season, what hobbies you could start today, and how to fit hobbies into your busy schedule and make it a part of your life. Grab yourself something yummy to drink and let's get started. If you struggle with anxiety, you struggle with chronic illness, you struggle with anything related to your health, hobbies are a game changer. It is so important to think about things other than your health. Especially if you have anxiety, it is so easy to get stuck in that negative thought loop where all you can think about is your health, where all you can think about is whatever situation you're ruminating on. Hobbies give you a way to distract from those negative thought patterns. I talk about this a lot with my clients when we're working through their health issues, especially if you have an autoimmune disease or chronic illness. There are so many ups and downs on that journey. And if you're spending all your time thinking about how terrible you feel in your body, you're spending all your time researching what could be wrong with me, what could I be doing, it ends up being this cycle where it makes things a lot worse. So I always emphasize the importance of having things outside of your healing journey that have nothing to do with your health, something that is just fun for you and reminds you that you are not only your illness, that you are not only your anxiety, that you have other interests and passions and things that make you unique besides the symptoms that you're currently feeling. I hear from a lot of my clients that they just want to feel like their old self again. And even if you don't have any issues with your health, maybe just the feeling of when you were a kid or when you were in college and how carefree you felt, you want to feel that again. Hobbies are a way that you can reconnect to that activity. One of my life mottos is, if it brought me joy once, it'll probably bring me joy again. And I mean that in the sense of when you were a kid, when you were in high school, when you were in college, what are things that you used to like? And can you try them in some way again as an adult? Whether that's literally, I will reread series that I used to love as a kid, and they always bring me a lot of enjoyment, even if it's more of a nostalgia value where I remember how I felt when I read them before. You could go to places that you went to as a kid. You could try activities, whether that was dance or you want to join a recreational soccer league. If it brought you joy once, it'll probably bring you joy again. Another reason why hobbies are so important for your mental health, because it's something that's not tied to your work. It's not tied to being good at something. In fact, you're probably going to be bad at it at first, and it's great to practice being a beginner again. I also find hobbies to be so helpful for work-life balance. Sometimes we're like, I want to have more work-life balance. I don't want work to be my entire life. And then there's almost this realization that you don't know what to do outside of work. Or it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, cleaning the house, taking care of your family, which often can just feel like a different type of work. Hobbies give you something else to do. So instead of watching TV at the end of the night, you can engage in your hobby. Before you go to work, you could work on a creative project and feel like you got to do something for yourself before doing something else for your work. Prioritizing hobbies can actually make you more productive in other areas of your life because it helps to prevent burnout. It helps you to recharge. It helps you to feel more creative, more curious. One of the biggest things I do when I'm working with patients who are struggling with burnout is get them to engage with hobbies. If you're struggling with burnout right now, I do have an entire video on recovering from burnout in 6 weeks, so make sure you watch that one next. But a really important part of avoiding burnout is doing things that make you feel fulfilled, filling up your own cup first. On the topic of productivity, I do want to caution that it is a slippery slope with hobbies where they could become work or become monetized, and that's not all bad. That can be a wonderful way to develop new passions and even new careers. But I do think it's always important to have some type of hobby that's not tied to a specific output or generating income for yourself so that it still feels really fulfilling and pure. Hobbies are great for mental health because they help to boost self-esteem. When you are starting out as a beginner again in any project and you're able to progress, that build self-confidence, that build self-discipline to keep engaging in this skill even when it doesn't come easy to you. But that payoff of when things start to improve, or you now have all this evidence for yourself of how much time and energy you've invested into this hobby, it helps to increase your sense of self-esteem and your sense of self-worth. Hobbies help to reduce stress. Depending on which hobby you choose, they can be very relaxing. But what's even more important to that is that it's relaxing to you. There are some activities and hobbies like puzzles that I enjoy doing them, but I don't necessarily find it relaxing. Same with board games, but other people might find those activities very relaxing. So it's a great way to get to know yourself and figure out what you even like. That helps with self-expression and having a sense of purpose. Also, hobbies can be a great avenue to making connections with other people that share your same interests. That increases social connection, decreases feelings of loneliness and isolation, and it's also really fun to talk to people who are excited about the same things that you're excited about. So we know that hobbies are important, but how do you choose the right hobby for you? The number one question I want you to think about is, what do you need more of in your life right now? Do you need more rest? You have a very busy and stressful job. You have a lot of things going on in your life. You just need to feel more relaxed and more rested. You would want to choose a hobby that's more relaxing, that maybe gets you into that flow state, that has an element of mindfulness to it. If you feel really bored, maybe your job's a little on the boring side, not as engaging, you don't feel very intellectually stimulated, maybe you want to choose a more creative, or maybe you want to choose a hobby where you're really using your brain, you're diving into some specific interest, you're being really creative, you're trying a lot of new things that will challenge your brain. Maybe it's been a goal of yours to be more active, so you would look for a hobby that involves a lot of movement, maybe a rec league or going hiking on the weekends. And maybe you want to feel more connected, you want to build out some more relationships in your life, so you join a hobby-related club like a book club or a movie club. So think about what you need in your life right now, what you need in this current season. This doesn't mean that this is going to be your forever hobby. There are a lot of hobbies you might cycle through in your life, but what are you needing more of right now? And then if you're still feeling stuck, go back to what you used to love as a kid. What were some activities that you really enjoyed doing? Like I mentioned, that can be a great place to start and give you a jumping off point of something that you could try first. I'm always going to recommend that you start with a no to low cost activity. It can be really tempting to get excited about a new hobby and buy all the supplies you possibly can, but there are so many free ways to start a hobby to make sure that it's something that you do really enjoy before you invest in more supplies and more things that you think you might need. Check out your local library. There are so many different offerings. There's not just books there, though books and reading is an amazing hobby too. You'd be surprised how many things you can find for free if you're looking for it. All right, let's get into some hobbies. This is not an all-encompassing list. In fact, I really hope that you point out in the comments some things that I've missed so that we can all get inspired together. But I think this is a good mix of more intellectually stimulating hobbies, more restful hobbies, more active hobbies. So I hope you find some inspiration in this. Reading is one of my all-time favorite hobbies. This is definitely something that I found joy in as a kid, and I still feel joy in as an adult. It has changed a lot, the genres that I like to read, and that's what I love about recommending reading to anyone if they're looking for a hobby. There are so many different genres to explore. If you haven't enjoyed reading in the past, maybe your only experience is reading through school, which maybe those books aren't the most exciting or fun books to read, there is an entire other world out there of books that you could try out. Whether it's romance or fantasy or science fiction or memoirs, literary fiction, historical fiction, thrillers and mysteries, truly so many different genres that you could try out. I heard this statistic on the Liz Moody show that literally rocked my world, but reading for just 6 minutes a day reduces stress by 68% in just 6 minutes. That's insane. You don't even need to dedicate that much time to this hobby to see the benefits in your stress levels and your mental health. You can approach reading from so many different angles. If you are looking for something that is more intellectually stimulating, you might choose nonfiction or memoirs, though you can learn so much from fiction books too. But if you are craving something fun and light, go for fiction. Go for something that's funny and lighthearted. You do not need to read the most academic books. And also don't be afraid to say a book is not for you and to move on to the next. Eventually you're gonna find your genre, you're gonna find your authors that you like. I like to just keep a running list of all the books that I've read during the year. One, because people will ask for suggestions of books you've read, and if I don't write it down, I usually forget it. And two, so I can start to see a pattern of what books did I like. I just give it a simple out of 5-star rating. I don't write a whole review, but you can. Reading is such an amazing low-cost hobby, especially if you're using your local library, and one that is so easy to start today. The second one kind of goes along with this, which is learning and diving into your special interests. There are likely times where you get a little ping where you're like, ooh, I'd love to learn more about that. Oh, that's really interesting to me. And maybe you're really good about listening to that, but often we forget about those things, right? So having learning as a hobby is really taking the time to go down those rabbit holes to read and learn about the things that really interest you. I just did a video on a personal curriculum, and this is that same idea, using research as a hobby. I went through for the fall and kind of decided my classes or my courses for my curriculum, and those were the topics that I really wanted to dive into and learn more about. I think this is an amazing hobby, especially if maybe you're feeling not as intellectually stimulated, you're feeling a little bored, you feel like you want to use your brain more. This isn't necessarily a relaxing hobby. This is more of that active hobby. And so this can be a nice one to add to the mix too. Another more active hobby is writing or content creation, anything where you're creating really. Maybe you're setting aside time every day to journal, to work on a novel, to record or edit a couple of videos, and you're really working on those things as your craft. Crafting is an amazing hobby. There are so many activities that kind of fall under the arts and crafts bucket. You have crochet and knitting, you have embroidery, you have painting and drawing, jewelry making. Maybe you'd put photography under that bucket, but that's another hobby. This is definitely one of my favorite hobbies, and I do a lot of creative journaling. It's also a way that I memory keep and keep track of different things that are happening in my life. This is definitely the hobby that I dedicate the most of my time to, besides reading. Probably those two are tied actually. And this was something that I used to love doing as a kid too. I used to always want to play with the stickers and the markers and write in my little journals and scrapbook. And then when I was in college, I was really into bullet journaling. So same kind of idea. And now I ended on this style of creative journaling. So that's kind of what I was talking about, where those things from your past, they come back. A lot of the arts and crafts activities like crocheting or knitting, you can really get into a flow state. I find them very relaxing. I find it really relaxing to be coloring in my journal. So those are some options for more relaxing hobbies. They are also things that you will feel like a beginner at first. And I really suggest going to take a class the first time. You can learn a lot of things for free on YouTube or from your local library. But in the last couple of years, I have gone to a local craft studio. Anytime my interest has been piqued around a different modality, I've taken an embroidery class and a crochet class, and those were just really helpful to learn the basic skills that I could then practice on my own. I tried to learn from YouTube in a video and it just wasn't clicking in my brain. So know that those options are out there. There are so many different art and craft studios around, so you can find different affordable intro classes there too. Then we get into the hobbies like puzzles and crossword puzzles and board games, which you might need to really use your brain, a lot of strategy. You're trying to figure things out. Again, to me, this is not a relaxing hobby, but things like puzzles I do really enjoy doing. But I know so many people who love this, who are huge board game people, and that's a big hobby for them. Baking and cooking. I love the idea of having a fun challenge with cooking, trying to cook your way through an entire cookbook, or maybe you're trying to perfect your sourdough or your chocolate chip cookie recipe. That can be a really fun way to just give a little bit of structure to the idea of, I want to bake more. Sometimes that's a little too loose that then we don't end up doing it. But by saying, I want to cook my way through this cookbook by the end of the year, that gives you some type of parameter. It gives you a challenge. It gives you more of an incentive to spend time on your hobby. And also you'll probably become a phenomenal baker. Another hobby idea is gardening. Gardening is a fun one because it combines a lot of different skills. You'll probably have to research what plants, what flowers would grow best in your area. So there's kind of a research phase with it where you're learning a lot. Then it's actually tending to the garden. You're spending time outside, which is so relaxing, so healing, so connective, and does require you investing time into your hobby. And then depending on what type of garden you grow, you might have a ton of produce, a ton of vegetables. So then you have to figure out in your kitchen, how are you going to use all these things? So that's a really fun and layered hobby that you could explore. Then there's tons of different options for active hobbies, whether that's hiking or joining a recreational sports league, taking an adult dance class, going to yoga. Not everyone will feel like exercise is a hobby. Maybe for you, exercise is just something that you do for your health. You don't particularly enjoy it, but it's something that you know is important. But for other people, this might be a really big source of joy, or you want to find an activity that brings you a lot of joy, a type of movement that you enjoy doing. Maybe it's a niche sport like archery, or it feels like everyone's into run clubs and running marathons right now. That might be something you really enjoy. Hiking is a great hobby because it gets you outside too. And again, I love the idea of adding some type of challenge to it. So maybe it's you want to do 12 hikes a year, so that's one a month. Or you know you want to do a half marathon, so you're working towards that goal. Another idea for a hobby is anything music related. So whether that's learning how to play piano, learning how to play guitar, taking voice lessons. But another way to think about music as a hobby beyond just the skills is enjoying more music. While I was in medical school, music was a big hobby of mine, but not in actually playing music, but listening to it. I would wake up early on Friday mornings. We always had an early morning lecture on Fridays. It was the worst, but I would wake up early because the release radar got updated. New music usually comes out on Fridays. And I would listen to the release radar on Spotify, top to bottom, with a cup of coffee in bed. And it was my favorite ritual that I did. It was a hobby just for me. There was nothing I was really gaining outside of it. Besides, it made me really happy and it made me feel fulfilled. And it kind of expanded to, then I was reading different blogs about when music releases. I was trying different genres. I was sorting songs into different playlists. Honestly, I kind of miss it. I kind of want to do it again. But it was this really specific hobby during the 4 years that I was in medical school that I was doing every single Friday. I think it was also a nice hobby for that time where I was extending a lot of mental brain power because it was a more passive hobby. But I wanted to share that so you could see that it's not always going to require all this energy from you. I was literally just sitting in bed enjoying music, but that can be your hobby. Another more low energy hobby is to go and watch movies. Maybe you want to watch all the movies in a series. You want to pick a specific director and watch all of their movies. Maybe you go to the movies once a week and you challenge yourself to see something different than what you would normally pick. Listening to new music, seeing different movies, I find it so creatively inspiring. You pick up on different things, especially when they're things that maybe are a touch outside of your comfort zone or what you normally listen to or watch. Hopefully you're feeling really inspired about all the different hobbies that you could possibly do, but maybe there's a voice in the back of your head being like, this sounds great, but I don't know how this is gonna work in my life. I'm so busy, I'm so tired at the end of the day. I just don't know how I'm going to make hobbies happen. My suggestion would be to just pick one. If you do have a little bit more time or energy, you might want to pick one that's relaxing, one that's a little bit more energizing, and one that's creatively inspiring. That way you always have a couple you can choose between depending on how you're feeling that day. My first bit of advice is don't underestimate the power of a 10 to 15 minute timer. You don't need hours and hours of time devoted to this hobby. You can spend 10 to 15 minutes a day, and over a course of a week, that adds up to an hour and a half. That's a lot of how my creative journal happens, depending on the season of life. Sometimes it's 10 minutes in the morning before I start work, and sometimes it's 10 minutes right before bed. Something that really grounds me, and because I know it's just 10 minutes, it's not as much of a hurdle to start doing it. Next, think about all the pockets of time that you pick up your phone out of habit, out of boredom, and is there a way that you could do a small part of your hobby during that time? So if you know you get home from work and you immediately start scrolling, maybe you keep your crochet stuff out on the couch so you're able to pick that up and start doing something with your hands instead. It's really hard to scroll when you're crocheting, let me tell you. I also really like the idea of using hobbies as a transition activity after work, help you with that work-life balance and transition into home life. And of course, use your weekends. See this as your self-care. Can you set aside an hour, a couple hours, either on a Saturday or Sunday? For me, I really love doing this on a Sunday afternoon, having a couple hours to read or to work on a creative project. It really fills your cup. It helps you to feel so much more fulfilled and rested going into the next week. But maybe you can make that a habit or a routine that you know on the weekends you're gonna do your self-care hobby. I've talked about how much I love challenges. I just really love a checklist. That's what it is. But you could create a bucket list for the season related to your hobby. That can be a fun way to make sure that you're devoting time to it. And also, if you have a lot of different hobbies, that could be nice to have a little bucket list of different things that you want to explore. And another way to make it part of your life is to invite other people into your hobbies. So whether it's doing the exact same hobby with you or more of like a parallel play where you're each working on your own hobbies, that helps to boost your social connection and also make sure that you're each prioritizing the things that bring you joy. I love going to a coffee shop and everybody brings their own hobby that they're working on, whether it's painting and drawing or me working on my creative journal, someone else reading. It's really cozy. Everyone's feeling fulfilled. Everyone's feeling joyful because they're getting to do what they love to do while they're with the people that they love. Taking care of your mental health doesn't have to be so serious. I love a good mindfulness moment. Obviously, your mental health is very important. It is serious. I love going to therapy and doing my gratitude journaling. I love having a big toolkit for my mental health. Nothing has made a bigger impact on my mental health, on my joy, on my happiness than prioritizing my hobbies. It's reminded me of who I am outside of my anxiety and my chronic illness. It's made me more creative and curious and a better, well-rounded person. So I would love to hear what hobbies you're interested and inspired to explore. We're entering cozy season. This is the perfect time to pick up a new hobby, especially as we're spending more time inside. So leave me a comment down below what you're gonna explore first. I'm so excited for you on your hobby journey and bringing in more joy and fun, playfulness into your mental health. Until next time, I'm rooting for you every step of the way.